Thank you very much. So hello everyone and welcome to Shooting for Success, Essential Video Production Skills and Solutions. So first of all, I really appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy schedules to join me in learning what will hopefully be some helpful tips in how to utilize video in making your business more successful. I'd also like to say thank you to Business West Chamber of Commerce and also the West of England and North Somerset Local Skills Improvement Plan for setting this up, and also thank you for the teas and coffees and the pastries as well. I want to start by trying to get to know all of you a little bit more. So you should have a flag that I very handily crafted myself that you found on your seats. So I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions about video content, and I'd like you to raise your flag and give it a little wiggle if you think that it applies to you. So the first question is, who has used video in marketing or comms before? Okay. Quite a few of you then. Who makes video content yourselves? Okay. Oh no, I'm up against some experts here. Who thinks video content is expensive? Maybe depending, right? Okay, fair enough. And who watches video content, personal or professional? I'm sure everyone does. Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, thank you everyone. So that's some really interesting answers. I am surprised genuinely by some of those. And it is interesting for me to see this because as someone who produces video content, I like to sort of feel your relationship to the medium like as it stands before my chat today. So I want to start by talking about why video is such a great medium for comms. And obviously I know that all of you do too, otherwise you wouldn't be sat here today. But I want to take just a quick deep dive into why and how it's such a good tool for business. So no matter what kind of professional you are or what kind of industry your business sits in, most customers or your target audience, I would suspect, are quite time poor. So we saw at the beginning when you were waving your flags, how many of you watch videos yourself? I mean, it's 2024, we all watch videos. But if you think about the way that you yourself consume content, I would hazard a guess that a lot of the time when you're scrolling through social media that you scroll past quite a lot of content and you might not last maybe more than 5 or 6 seconds glancing at a social post unless it really grabs your attention, and video is a really great medium for this, of course. Something that is relevant, something that's eye-catching and also serves your needs at that moment. So in that moment, your need might be, for example, I don't know, you really desire cute kitten and puppy content, which is something that I like to look at, of course, but in a professional sense, obviously, that video should suddenly answer that question that you didn't know that you had inside you. It should speak to one of your pain points. It should say to you, oh, hello, I understand what you struggle with at work and I'm here to help you. So video, it makes a really great hook. So much so that, here's a stat for you, 91% of 967 unique professionals and online consumers that were surveyed by Wise Owl say that they use video as a marketing tool and they think that video is a no-brainer. Obviously, if you or your department heads are more digitally inclined, you should also know that since Google acquired YouTube, YouTube videos can also help your SEO ranking. And it will also appear in Google searches, meaning that if you have a website, you can also strategically place things like targeted keywords into your YouTube video title, as well as in your video descriptions, which will double your web traffic efforts by also having that video presence. So it's a really great way just to double up all of your efforts there. Video, of course, as well as being eye-catching and exciting, as I said, is a great way to drive that web traffic. So it does lots of that heavy lifting and all of that hard work for you. So that was just a little recap, of course, on why video is a great tool. So I might like to deconstruct the video format so you can take that knowledge away with you and really have a think about what is the absolute best way to curate the best kinds of video for you and your business. And of course, I'm sure that all of you are from a variety of industries with different target audiences. You might be, for example, a new business thinking about brand awareness. You might be an educational institution trying to drive admissions. There might be some of you who want to push a particular product or a service, or maybe a specific call to action. You might need to use video to explain in further detail how to do something, or also to spread knowledge and education about a particular topic. These are some examples of clients that we've done work for, all of whom had very different needs. Interestingly, the suite of content that we made for UE was actually the same footage that was cut in lots of different ways. So we made them a specific TV advert, we made them a longer brand film, and also 4 individual films which were focusing on the students that we featured in that film. And I'm pointing this out because UE themselves had identified different areas and needs within their target audience, which is also something I think is really important for you to think about first and foremost when you're thinking about your own video content. But why is it important to identify these areas and also think about the people within that? The group of you that are here today, if you take a look at the person sitting next to you who's someone that you didn't come here with today, they probably watch very different types of content to you. They probably engage with different styles as well. It's very likely that the videos that they find useful and interesting are very different to the ones that you find useful and interesting. So there are a variety of choices that make up the fabric of a video. That's, for example, whether you choose for it to be live action, whether it's 2D or 3D animation, whether you're asking actors to play a part or you're interviewing real life customers and staff. How are you writing your script? Is it informative and factual, or is it playful and punchy? Are you putting music in? And if so, what kind? Are you going to have graphics that pop up on screen, or are you going to have a voiceover, or are you going to have both? What's the pace of your video? Is it slow and steady, or is it upbeat and quick? Are you hard coding subtitles into the video, or are you giving the option to switch them on or off? All of these things come together to make a video, of course, and it's what I like to call your video language, because all of these things added together is what makes a video speak or not speak to you and your audience. And where you place that video as well will also make a difference whether a video speaks to your target audience or not. There's a time and a place for long form content, for example. A lot of B2B content will be hosted on platforms like these. Then maybe there'll be their shorter counterparts as well, which might be a bit more adverty on platforms like these. Of course, there are platforms that serve both purposes, but generally I'd say that these are kind of the most effective places to host either long or short pieces of content. So to give you a kind of general overview of all the different types of content that can go on these type of platforms, I'd say that in general there are 5 different types of video categories. So entertainment, documentary, promotional, informational, and educational. Whilst there's content that ticks more than one of these boxes, these categories are generally quite a good way for you to think about what kind of job you want your video to do. I guess for most of you, the kind of videos that you'll be interested in, that you're trying to put out, will probably fall into these categories, and then probably most specifically promotional or educational, unless you also do internal comms videos for announcements and staff training, things like that. So what I'm going to do is show you, of course, a selection of videos that we at Fable Studios have done that fall into those specific categories, so you can see the difference between their video languages. Some of them are just excerpts of longer videos, but I wanted to include them here so you can, again, see the difference and how they vary in tone and pace. Some of the visual differences are, of course, to do with the business, their brand guidelines. They all obviously have different styles. But a lot of those styles that you're about to see, we actually ideated with the client ourselves, and we kind of came up with a new way to bring their brand guidelines into a video brand guidelines. So before I play the video, without sounding too much like a school teacher, when you're watching these videos, try and have a think about whether you think these are promotional, informational, or educational, and try and really feel the difference between all of them. So it's just a couple of minutes long, and I'll play it for you now.
Get industry ready. Get future ready.
It's having someone to support you, encourage you, and inspire you. That's mentorship done right. It's modern, industry standard kit.
Building skills.
Building confidence.
That's facilities done right.
It's being relevant, having access, connections, and getting real experience. That's industry placements done right.
It's being inspired, given perspective and insight, and gaining a competitive edge. That's industry connections done right.
It's knowledge building, it's collaboration, it's practice, practice, practice. That's learning done right.
Get future ready. UWE Bristol, choose to do university right.
What's that? And am I looking at you? So the last thing that I messaged my dad about was I needed my car serviced.
Probably asking for a lift home from the pub.
I think the best piece of advice I've been given so far is just to listen to my body.
It's different for everybody and you've just got to trust your instincts.
The latest round of pension rule changes have been called a £1 billion giveaway, but there are questions over whether or not most of us will actually see any benefits. In a nutshell, 4 pension allowances are effectively rising. This might not sound like much, but for some it could be a game changer.
To ensure that we all enjoy a safe and pleasant working environment, there are some simple guidelines to follow.
Once you've clicked Transfer or Get Started, you'll be asked to confirm what it is you want to transfer. In this case, a pension. The HL, Self-Invested Personal Pension, or SIP, will automatically appear as the account receiving the transfer.
Is this why artificial intelligence is a feminist issue? We are the Women in Data Science and AI team, part of the public policy programme at the Alan Turing Institute, the UK's National Institute for Data Science and AI. The best portfolios will hold a range of investments, including in shares and bonds from around the world. How much you hold in each will depend on your personal circumstances. This video focuses on corporate bonds and how to buy corporate bonds from around the world.
Diversification. Imagine you have a sports team. You'll want a fantastic striker, but you don't only want fantastic strikers. If you forget to include a goalkeeper and a couple of good defenders, your team won't do very well. In a team, every player is equally important. They all need to play their part and even out each other's weaknesses to have the best chance of winning the game.
So there's a short selection of work that we've done. And we've done so much more work than that, but I wanted to pick some things that I thought would be useful and specific for you today. So I hope that playing all those back to back can help you see the difference in all of their styles and be, maybe, as I said, a jumping off point to what might be helpful for all of you here today. But if you sat here and then watched all of that and then thought, I actually have no idea still what I need or how I'd like to change my style, then that's also absolutely fine, because a lot of businesses that come to us are at the beginning of their journeys, or they've done a little bit, as some of you may have done before, and you're thinking about changing your style. And that's where the expertise of all the different people in a production agency can come into play, which is something that I'll touch on again later. So now that you have more knowledge and information on the different types of video in general, I'm going to get a bit more specific now. So I had a look at all of your organisations and your businesses that you represent. So the suggestions that I'm going to make are what I think will be really specific to you and the kind of videos that will be really helpful to all of you sat here today. So first of all, live action. Case studies or testimonial videos are a really great option if you're looking to demonstrate you or your customers' successes. It's a really authentic way to sell yourself and your brand or your service without having to do too much of a hard sell like an advert. Interviews are also a really great way to get nice candid answers, even if it's just interviewing yourselves internally. It brings a real human element to a business, which is quite nice. Sometimes nice to get information across in a sort of conversational, chatty way. Again, it's less of a hard sell. But you can also lean into advertising your brand or service, which can be done in a variety of ways. So you can do things like TV adverts, which we do as well, or online adverts. As I said at the beginning when we were talking about the language of video, your advert can showcase people in your business, so they can be real life people, or they can also feature actors if you're kind of leaning into that harder sell element of your product or service. But advertising doesn't have to be just, buy one, get one free, as you've seen with the UE advert. It doesn't have to be quite like, old school. And it brings that awareness and that interest to your organization again. Informational talking heads are really great if you want to get across straight up facts. So these are really good for things like announcements or updates. To touch on the language of video again, if you look straight at the camera, it gives a very different vibe to giving an interview off camera. It depends what you would like, and it's something that we would discuss with you. You can see in the thumbnails for the testimonials and case studies and also the informational talking heads, they're quite different. They're both pieces to camera, what we would call pieces to camera or talking heads. But again, it feels different when you are speaking off camera to an interviewer as opposed to into an auto cue or delivering direct to camera. But again, it just depends what you like. Internal comms videos are a really good way to keep your staff engaged and interested. It's a really great way to strengthen your internal employer branding because, of course, happy and informed employees makes for great company culture. And then your great company culture speaks for you beyond the remit of your company walls as well. And then finally, there might be some of you in the audience for whom real life stories will be a good way to really draw in your viewers with that emotion and relatability. Lots of educational institutions, social enterprises, charities, they lean into this. Although, interestingly, we are working with a financial client at the moment who has started shining a light on the stories of their real customers, and that's actually working out for them much better than curated advertising. So that's also something to bear in mind. I think people these days, they like to go for authentic and real and a bit more human than something that is like super scripted, unless that works specifically for you. So if live action is something that is interesting for you, then I'll give you a brief overview of what happens behind the scenes of how you get to this place. And that is, we always start with scripting. Even if it's authentic content like interviews, as I said, or real life stories, it's still really good to put a structure in place for how your video is going to look at the end. Unless you want to be kept in the dark, which not a lot of people do when you're spending money on content, your final video should never be a complete surprise. You should know the general structure from the get-go. So for example, it might start with your logo or your graphics. You might have a call to action. Click here, donate here, visit our website, scan this QR code, something like that. You should have that general structure from the get-go. Then if you're thinking about live action, we talk about where to film this. So usually for us, we'd go into your offices and it's quite fun day of filming into the offices. Or there's also possibility of shooting in local studios as well. So we have lots of connections with local studios. If that's the kind of meta, I'm in a studio and I know it kind of vibe that you're going for, like in one of the examples that you've seen, that works for some people as well. So that's always an option. Then we think about who's going to be in front of the camera, who's your talent. This could either be, as I said before, actors, but that does cost money, which I'll talk about later, or your employees or your colleagues if you're going for that kind of real life, candid insight, what happens inside your business. Permissions, don't forget about permissions. Something that we do is we would help you get permissions if needed, which is really important if you decide that you want to do something like filming the outside of your building, because if the outside of your building opens onto a public pathway, then you need to get specific filming licenses from the local authorities. So that's something else to bear in mind. Even if you own your building or you're resident in that building, if it does open to a pathway, you do have to apply to the Bristol Film Office or local council to be able to get permission to put your tripod down and film the outside. So once your footage has been shot, we then get into editing, of course. So depending on your timelines, the great thing about working with agencies is that we can help you with all of those stressful deadlines because of multiple people that you can have working on your project at the same time. You then get to do feedback rounds and amends, and we immediately get back into the editing to make those amends for you. And then depending where you want to put your video then, so you would talk to us and you'd say, thinking about putting this on my website, or I'm thinking about going on TV, we can help to output it in a format that is optimized for whatever you want to do. So as I said, it might need to be web optimized, it might need to be broadcast specific if you're doing TV or cinema, it might be for some very specific internal platform that you might have, or it might be in a rarer format, something like, I don't know, web RTC, something like this. Our internal editors deal with this kind of thing all the time. And then finally, we know how important social media is to any business, and it's really important that your content can be reversioned and optimized if you have social platforms as well, a bit like the platforms I was talking about earlier. So that's if you're interested in live action content. However, motion graphics and animations is a really great option if you're looking to do explainer videos, which can work with either characters or motion graphics. So these formats are really good for explaining complex information. So some of our clients that like to use animation and motion graphics are in industries like finance, law, or healthcare, where they're trying to break that barrier to entry and demystify certain difficult topics. This is a really good way to be able to do that for your mass market. Probably now would be quite a good time to give you a simple explanation on the difference between animation and motion graphics. So motion graphics are kind of like static images and text that moves around, and animation is more like characters and shape that have to be changed frame by frame. So character animation is more expensive and complicated. So if you're at the start of your video journey, or you're thinking about something more simple and you're testing the waters, I say that motion graphics is probably the way to go. You can also do a mix of motion graphics and screen recordings, really good way to do how-to videos if you want to give tutorials or instructions. And the how-to videos are really good for doing a lot of heavy lifting, so your audience can feel empowered to find their own information and navigate your platforms or your websites without having to actually speak to anyone. Because someone that I spoke to a while ago said that they'd estimated every one of their customer inquiries cost over £4. So that's every time, they calculated that with every time a customer called in to ask how to do something or where to find a document, and then a member of staff had to answer that phone, and then they spent their salaried time pointing the customer in the right direction. That racks up to thousands of pounds very, very quickly. So you can see why lots of businesses lean into video content to do all of that heavy lifting, because ultimately it results in trimming your business's bottom line and saving money, which is everything that we want. Bless you. So if motion graphics is the way forward for you, then just to quickly cover the process of what goes on behind the scenes of how we create your project again is, once again, starting with a script. Everything in video starts with a script. Once your script has been signed off, we would then create style frames for you, either based on your existing brand guidelines or creating a new style for you. Here's a good example of one of the videos that we saw earlier that we did for the Alan Turing Institute, of where the style frame started and then where the style actually ended up. So it's very, very different, as you can see. Lots of the stuff that we do for financial, healthcare, legal, they tend to have quite set in stone brand guidelines, but may not technically have video brand guidelines. So we can also help you build those as well. After the style and the scripts have been agreed, we then merge those two together to create a storyboard for you. So you can see the entire video laid out in stills. Motion graphics and animation does take a longer time frame and is more manual effort, so storyboarding is a really important stage of the process. Everything needs to be agreed here before we move on to the actual animation. As I said before, nothing in your video should be a complete surprise. These kind of videos are, again, usually accompanied by a voiceover. So we do the recording for that at this stage in the process in order to give our internal animators a track to actually animate to. So at Fable Studios, we actually have a number of internally trained voiceover artists, myself included. You probably heard some of that You probably recognise my voice in some of the videos that we did, and also my lovely colleague Rob at the back is also a trained voiceover artist. And this is a really good option to ask when you're commissioning a video agency, you know, whether you speak to us or anyone else, ask them if they do have internal voiceovers, because external voiceover artists, again, are an additional cost. And they can cost more money, which I'll go over in a moment. Sometimes as well, if you are really, really nice, you can rope in someone and you can beg someone from your team to do the voiceover as well. A lot of studios like ourselves, we have a recording area in our studio, so you can sometimes get your employees and your colleagues to come in and do the voiceover recording with lots of persuasion sometimes, but it also helps to save on the cost as well. After that, after the voiceover, then we can do the full animation process, and then again we can output it to your optimal format and then reversion it again for social media if you need. So those are my very brief overview of recommendations of the different types of videos that I think would be very useful for you guys sat here today. So just before I finish and go to and take some questions, I just want to talk about stress and pain points, because I know your stress is. I know it's easy for me standing here, but I'm here at the Watershed today as part of Fable Studios, and it's funny because, again, a few years ago I was here with Fable Studios at the Watershed, but I was actually the client, so I had hired Fable as well. I'd seen the benefit of video because I'd been feeling that marketing pressure of trying to do lots of things with one single pot of money, which I'm sure lots of you are feeling that, which is why I hired Fable to help me out, because I wanted to showcase my expertise, I wanted to bring brand awareness to my company, I wanted to spread information and knowledge and also look really slick and modern doing it. Obviously, I then got made redundant in COVID, but it was obviously the best thing that happened to me because I'm standing here today being able to represent in obviously the best job that I've ever had. I haven't been paid extra to say that. Maybe I should be. No? Okay, yeah. So at the time, I was, you know, to be honest, I was like, I could probably go way cheaper, but I'm really glad that I didn't, because I knew that there were multiple experts who were able to help with all of their collated experiences to help me strategize. I had about 1,000 things to think of, and it was so wonderful to be able to have an agency that just really understood what I needed, and they could take all of that away from me. I really, really valued that. I'd also found that my communication with them was really responsive because there was always someone there to answer my questions. I was working with a marketing consultant at the time, and she took annual leave during one of our crunch times, and I didn't have anyone to talk to about it, which obviously she was well within her right to, but it was quite stressful for me at the time when I had my own internal pressures. And then I was also really grateful when I found out that I needed additional help, but I had reached my budget for that month. They didn't give me any pressure as well. They didn't make me feel anxious or stressed, even though I was under that really big deadline. And they were also able to help me connect with other freelancers and agencies as well. Because we're just all really well connected and we always like to help out. Bristol's a really great network. If we can't do the work for you, we'll always try and pass you along to someone who can do the work for you. Or if we're not quite the right fit for you, we always try and do that as well, pass you along to someone else, because really love supporting everyone in the Bristol network and always try and pass work along, and especially bring work from, like, I work really hard in trying to bring work from London to Bristol so we can support all of the Bristol freelancers as well. So I've sat where you are now, and I can tell you, if you are starting to think about more video, then I think you've already made up your minds, and I can promise you that it is worth it. So I hope it's been useful. I'm always really keen to connect with people as well. I've got my QR code here, but you can also find me afterwards for a chat in the cafe, I think. So feel free to add me on LinkedIn or grab me in the cafe. So I think I'm going to hand back to Business West Chamber of Commerce. So thank you very much, and I think we're going to open up the floor for some questions. Great. Thank you.
So as Yaz said, we'll open the floor now to any questions that you might have.
Go ahead. Have you ever looked at, and do you think it's feasible to do like a subscription model with different tiers?
Yes, so it's actually something that we're thinking about at the moment is packages, because we're responding to lots of people who are thinking about how we can, rather than just a one-off piece, is there a way that we can package it up and almost like create a suite, like I said, like the stuff that we did for UE. So it is actually something that we are looking into at the moment, because it might be helpful for all of you, and something that we're very open to is this kind of open conversation where all of you will go, actually, do you know what? I don't just want a TV advert, I want a TV advert and a brand film and something else, but I'd like it to be packaged up in a way that is nice, that looks very nice to me. So we're very open to that, I think, but it is something that's sort of in the works. But if you had more ideas about it, it's really helpful for all of you to give that to us so we can then put that into place, because ultimately we want to be able to give you something that you want. Yes, thank you. Any other questions?
When it comes to scripting,
yes.
How detailed and involved do you get on, like, say if you're doing a case study, for example, what sort of, would you get the person you're talking to involved and say, can you write, you know, what you're going to say, or do you go a lot more light touch?
It really depends on whether you'd like to have that input as the client yourself. I'd say that whilst we work across a number of industries, I'll never turn around and say, I'm the expert in your field. So I think it's always fair to say that if you've got all of the facts and figures that you'd like put in, but you'd like me to write it in a way that seems punchy and upbeat, then we can do that for you. We work with financial clients and legal clients who are very specific because they have to go through compliance as well. So we basically don't touch that with a barge pole. But we also understand that, you know, FinProms and compliance, they can also change at the last minute. So we make sure that we're on hand to make those changes on, for example, like an auto cue or something like that. And lots of people like to read off auto cue as well, which because it is a bit nerve-wracking to be in front of the camera. So so in short, it depends on what you'd like. We're there to support you as much as we can, unless you want to do it all yourself. Yes.
Do you provide like coaching to be on camera?
It's
kind of part of it.
Yes.
Or is it kind of just?
No, we'll never leave you high and dry. No, if you say to us up front that you are feeling a little bit nervous about it, we can always come pop into your office and see you and have a chat to you. We can jump on a number of calls. We can do practices as well. We can also make sure that when it comes to the shoot day, we can schedule in some time to do practices as well, especially, as I said, you know, when it comes to the auto cue, because it takes a little bit of time to get used to. But we can offer that if that's something that you need. It's not something that we would say we'll charge you extra for this, but if it's something that you need, then it's part of the package. Yeah.
And just last question on the kind of an interview, was it?
Yeah, like for the live action testimonials. Oh no, that would be for the entire project, for what we call script to screen, essentially. So right from the get-go of, you know, if you need a little bit of help strategizing of like where you're going to put it, what you're going to do, from writing the script as well, or as much script help as you need, all of the kit, all of the crew on your shoot day will come to your offices. We'll do all of the editing, all of the feedback, whatever quote we give you within the brief that you give to us, which again we can help you formulate if you're not sure what information you need from us. The quote that you get, bar the usage, which is what we talked about, if you wanted to have actors there, that will be your entire project. So there shouldn't be anything hidden unless you suddenly decide, I want my 3D logo flashing and like singing horses and that kind of thing.
In terms of actual filming time, is that generally a day?
Yeah, I'd say I think it's generally a day. So we'd probably come in at like the earliest that we can get in there to set up, maybe 8:30, finish around 5, 6, with probably just a break for lunch in between, and that's it. Yeah. Any other questions?
Why is
yes.
it that some videographers cost less than agency?
So that's a really good question, because as I said, there are a variety of price points out there. You have videographers who are kind of what we call self-shooters, so they would do everything, well, they may not do the entire script to screen process for you, so they will turn up on the day and they'll shoot the footage for you and potentially edit. But with an agency, the additional cost that you're paying for is all of that pre-production bit and all of that post-production bit as well. So all of that scripting help, all of that strategizing, understanding the way that compliance departments work, understanding the nuances of, for example, broadcast advertising regulations as well. So we do a lot of TV adverts, and even if you're doing brand videos that are going on YouTube, there's a certain standard that they have to meet. Sometimes you might see like terms and conditions apply, like the small print at the bottom of an advert. That will be work from an agency that is going in and chatting to the regulators to make sure that you're all covered and you're protected with whatever claims that you're making. So an agency does all of that versus a videographer who might just do the filming itself, which might be specifically, if you just want the filming and the footage, that might be what you need. But if you're looking for the whole package, that's what a production agency provides within that cost. Yes?
You touched upon obviously that a filming day can take a day,
Mhm.
but like how long typically does it make to make the video from
Normally I'd say if you're doing one case study or one live action like filming day, it probably take 2 or 3 days to do the initial going through of everything, and then probably, depending on how long it takes you to feed back, maybe a couple of weeks of going back and forth. However, we have had clients who've said, I need this in 2 weeks' time, can you make it happen? And then of course we say, do you know what, the joy of being in a production agency is that we can have multiple people working on it, so we can, we can help you achieve that goal. Obviously, if you need something overnight, I mean, we have actually done, I don't want to say this, that we do this all the time, but we have actually done overnights before, where we shot for a fashion brand, where we shot a catwalk and it needed to be turned over for the next day. That was very stressful. Don't put us under that, please. But it is achievable. So normally I'd say a ballpark is give yourself between 4 to 6 weeks, a really good runway to be able to complete a full video project for live action. Animation, again, depending on the complexity, might take a little bit longer, but again, you're sort of thinking about maybe sort of a 6 week project for an animation. Yes?
And if I was like now to consider commissioning a video, what would I need to do?
So if you wanted to go ahead and book us in or anyone in for a video, I'd really recommend giving as detailed as a brief as possible. So everything that I talked about today, and again, like you'll get the slides afterwards, if you can try and give some detail around what you want around those points that I've brought up today, the more information that you can give in the brief, the better, which will make the whole process a lot quicker. So if you wanted to go ahead and commission a video, you could tell us things like, where are you putting the video? So what platform are you going on TV? Because that's a whole different thing as well. Or is it going on your website? Who's your target audience? Who are you trying to talk to? Do you have existing brand guidelines? An idea of what your messaging is? Do you have a call to action? Are you asking for donations? Are you asking for clicks? Are you asking to visit websites and things? As you would with any piece of content, any piece of like content marketing, make sure that you've got your strong messaging in there, you've got your through line. Let us know if there's a specific, I don't know, like a specific phrase that you're working across your other offline campaigns that you need to bring into this video, and that is a non-negotiable. And then also let us know, oh, it would be really nice to have, I don't know, can you get some footage of Bristol? We'd say, maybe within your budget, what we can do is we can buy in some stock footage of Bristol and cut it in with some of your branding. We can do that as well. So give us as much detail as possible in the brief, and then we can just hit the ground running and essentially just go for it. Yes?
In your professional opinion, is there a place for the DIY video where it's the best option?
In terms of animation and graphics, no, because as I said, I think you can tell when something's been bought in. If you wanted to go super authentic, something that is quite trendy at the moment is something called user-generated content, and that's where you basically whip out a phone and you just do it on your phone. There are things like CapCut and stuff like that, where you can add your own captions in and things like that. But again, it has a very different look and feel to something that you're doing to represent your brand. But if you are looking for that kind of like quick thing and that authentic thing, there's literally nothing wrong with just grabbing your phone, getting one of the apps and just putting your captions in, because that is something that is quite trendy at the moment, which lots of brands are trying to replicate along with their brand videos. So I think a warning would be, if you are going to do that, really lean into that and don't try and make it look slicker than it is ever going to be on a phone, I think. But I mean, our phones are great now. They've all got really great cameras and things, but really make that the style that you're going for, rather than trying to recreate something like this with a phone. They're two very different things, but none is better than the other. It just depends what's good for you, basically. But I think CapCut is quite a good, I'm pretty sure it's free, the app as well. Great, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Val.